So anyway, Arthur, it's really good to see you again.
Good to see you.
So let me hear it.
Okay. So the first thing I've noticed is like now my instead of my practice being like an object within my daily experience, like oh I'll take these minutes to do my sitting meditation or something like that. I tend to notice it like becoming some sort of second nature, and it's like always with me during the day, and
Hmm.
not only within the cities, the cities. And I don't know, just like when I'm feeling caught in bad emotions, it's almost like a natural reaction now to respond to it in a good way of responding, like just catching it, and it like drops away and melts away so fast that it's almost like enjoyable to encounter like a more harsh situation, because it's like let's see like what we can do about that. And
Hmm.
it's been funny, very funny actually. I think my mood has improved a lot too, at least in the this past weeks. I'm not making a statement. I'm in a good mood like forever now, but so far I'm doing all right. And I tend to notice my concentration is better than before too. Um, because I'm so constantly like reinforcing it that it's just easier now,
Hmm.
and I'm finding it more delightful to sit for long periods of time. Um, One strange thing happened too. Like I kind of know you don't like such things. it
Pardon?
I kind of know you don't like such things because
I didn't hear the word. The
I,
stink. I
no
don't
no
like this.
no I kind of know you don't like such things, damas.
Things.
Eh,
Oh,
exactly.
okay. All right.
Uh,
Well, thank you for telling me. I didn't know that.
no, but it's specifically I was like in my, I don't know the word for it. It's like Porsche.
Like Porsche.
Yes, like the part of the house you're staring at.
Oh, the porch. Oh,
Yes,
the porch. Yes.
yes. I was in there, and like I was just mindfully aware of my thoughts, like just doing that. I think I wasn't meditating or something, but suddenly I felt a kind of thought that like didn't resemble the thoughts that usually appear within my sphere of consciousnesses. So I got up, and I like found my dad in my house, and I was like, uh, "Were you thinking about schedules, like when you make an appointment, you know?"
Okay.
And he was like, in that exact moment, like trying to make an appointment. And I find it like very interesting of sorts. I don't have an explanation for it. I'm not like a kind of superstition person, but it was funny to happen.
Did, okay. Um, there are various words in English language, and some people have become famous associated with the word. One word we could use would be serendipity. Carl Jung invented a word he called synchronicity.
Okay, yes, I'm familiar with that.
Okay, and serendipity is a word that is often used to indicate uh, the joyful, playful nature of how things fit together.
Mm-hmm.
But synchronicity sounds more like that it's clockwork, which is also an interesting way of expressing it. Uh, but within, let us say, all religions in their own vernacular are trying to point to that, that there is something bigger going on, and that the Buddha talked about it in the sense of cause effect, or the Pali word for it would be idiopapajayata. And another word that he would use for that, which is paticca samuppada
Mm.
or paticca samuppada. And what that means basically is with this, there is that. Every fire has a fuel. There is a cause or a reason for everything. And that in a grander scale, a whole lot of stuff gets kicked off with the same kind of causes. And so two effects can be sitting there marveling at each other at the simultaneous existence without actually understanding the underlying cause that kicked them both off at the same time.
Mm.
That happens on these Zoom calls frequently.
On the what?
On the Zoom calls, I'm not the
Oh,
Zoom,
okay.
the Skype calls. On the Skype
Okay.
calls, it happens frequently. Here one example that was, let us say, interesting to all of us was that an old friend of mine, Thad, who introduced me or introduced Noah to me, and I haven't heard from them, either one of them, in a long time,
I
right?
talked to
Because
Noah, I think.
Uh-huh. All right. So you know Noah. All right.
Yes.
So Thad is the one who told Noah about me, and then Noah told everybody. But the point is that isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting that they would both call at the same time after having not heard from either one of them for months?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. Here's another example, and I've just got tons of them. Some of them I remember, and others I don't. One was that at one point that I used the example with a student of uh, learning to do what you're doing. If you're going to do it, you might as well enjoy doing it. And I used the example of dishwashing, and that was just breathtaking to him because he was a professional dishwasher.
Mm.
No, it wasn't. It was just synchronicity. Now, did he have enough soap on his hands that the odor came to me through the internet? I'm not sure about that kind of stuff exactly how this happens because we're not sure of the sources.
Yeah.
But we understand that there is some kind of connection there. We just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And we can marvel at it, and then we can start saying, wait a minute, there is something behind putting all of this stuff together. The answer is no, we don't need, all we need is the law of cause and effect, and that's good enough right there. To understand that things have a fuel, that there are causes and effects, doesn't mean that now there's some magical Wizard of Oz behind some curtain pulling the dials to make all of this stuff fit together.
Mm-hmm.
It just naturally, playfully fits together.
Mm.
That's the better way of looking at it. And
Yes.
that part of the joy that you will have is beginning to see all of these connections as they pop up. because it just happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's almost amazing that how often things happen simultaneously that would be seemingly unrelated to us, and
Yes.
yet here they are together.
Yes.
How did
Yes.
that happen? We don't know how it happens often, but we know that it does happen, and we can marvel at that. That's part of the joy of being alive, of just being aware of what's happening around you and marvel at, wow, how did that happen?
Yes. And at the same time, I felt like it is deeply connected to some sort of uh, about how mindful you are at that moment, because I think these connections are always happening, like at the same time, and you just like if you're aware enough, you maybe notice one, but there is like tons of it like happening all the time.
That's exactly right. It's not that when you're a meditator, those things start to happen around you,
Yes,
which
they're
is
always
magical
happening.
thinking,
Yes,
but
yes,
rather that when you're a meditator, you begin to see all the stuff that really is happening around you that most people are not paying attention to. That's
yes,
the distinction is that the sati allows you to see what you could not see before, as opposed to things are happening and you want to try to control it. So it's
yes,
really magical thinking or grasping and clinging to a self that says, I want to control synchronicity so that I can make things happen.
mm-hmm. Yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes. So that was an interesting one. But like in regards to my experiences, like in the practice, besides my mood and some things like that, what happened like I think more 4 or 5 seats was that sense of vibrations, because it doesn't happen like every time, but I get this feeling of I start to spin, and the spinning goes to a vibration, and there I am like all made of like long wave vibrations, and it's very pleasant, and I enjoy it very much. But at the same time, I'm not like experiencing it like, because it kind of changed. Like I'm not feeling the vibrations um, outside of me that is watching. Now I'm feeling kind of like today I wasn't sure where was exactly my point of attention, because it kept changing like in a strange way, like it was morphing and wave like, just like the external vibrations I was feeling, but it's like in the center of my attention now.
Okay. Well, first off, there's a lot of indication that the waves are there. There's not just the physical waves of the sound waves that we have or the water waves, but that in fact you could go so far as to say that the Buddha, when he spoke of anicca or temporariness, he's actually referring to this up and down, back and forth wavy quality. Now, if the frequency changes very often within a wave, then the human being generally will consider that noise. But if the wave is consistent from one up cycle to down cycle, we're thinking of kind of a wave, a sine wave that has a relatively stable frequency. With that stability of a frequency, an example of something that does that is like the violin um string, that it's tuned to a particular frequency, and that frequency then vibrates consistently at that frequency. And this is why we can call it music. All right. And that basically what we're thinking about, If the mind is scatterbrained, then that means that all of the frequencies are changing rapidly so that it's actually kind of a noise in the mind. But once we gain some stability, once the restlessness begins to settle down, then we can begin to, let us say, harmonize or take frequencies or begin to see the vibrations as they are because they're consistent enough to be seen. Okay? That even though a mind moment will last about a tenth of a second, some things are happening a whole lot faster than that. An example of that would be the middle C on the piano or any note, right? 250 cycles per second. All right, so that frequency then that is very stable, the mind can pick up on that pattern and it can hear that note. We can pick it up very quickly, but not at the rate of 250 cycles per second. And so noise then is those things that are happening where the frequency changes very quickly. So this cycle is 256, the next cycle is 512, the next one it's 128, and just goes back and forth all over the place. All right. In that regard, then the mind can't pick it up. And so we don't know what to make of it because of that frequency is not stable enough for the mind to pick it up. But once the mind begins to get itself more stable, we can begin to pick up music that we couldn't hear before or that we heard it as noise.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so this is a way of understanding that this sharpness, this sati that we're developing is actually a skill to be developed, and it has to do with the speed of things. And that a lot of students think that it has to do with the word concentration, which is often used from the Pali word samadhi. But basically, what samadhi means is gathering things together. All right. In a way, you could say that the Buddha's language, with the way that it was used, is much more precise in exactly talking about exactly what's happening, to where our English translations get muddy because the translations are not really good. Okay. And so, an example of that is translating sati into mindfulness,
Mm.
because mindfulness is basically more of the aspect of investigation. My, so they say, for instance, mindful of your P's and Q's when they tell a kid, because you know the P and the Q are the same,
Mm.
except it's backwards,
Mm-hmm.
right? So mind your P's and Q's, little kid, while you're learning the alphabet, uh, means that you uh, you're not watching when you get it backwards, that you haven't learned it correctly. But adults, once they've been writing for a long time, they don't have to mind their P's and Q's because they already know exactly which one is which.
Mm.
So that's another quality of why mindfulness or minding things is not what we're talking about here. That basically what we're talking about is the ability to wake up and remember, to look, not the actual minding of the P's and Q's, because what we're waking up is to watch all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a whole lot more to watch than just that. So mindfulness, it's not a bad word for the beginner, but when we're actually wanting to get that speed increase into it, that's when we have to understand that nature of keep focusing or keep coming back and coming back and coming back over and over again, because it's when that waking up process is that then we're there to notice things like synchronicity.
Mm.
Okay, so um, the the waking up speed can be practiced um, with the breath. In fact, we can practice waking up with every breath. That's an interesting way of thinking about it, that this is part of the Anapanasati practice, and it's actually part of the Anapanasati Sutta. That we are uh, in that first step of Anapanasati. It says it when it's translated into mindfulness, it's almost missed. If you would leave it translated, untranslated as the Pali, then it would be easier to understand. But when they say mindfully breathe in and mindfully breathe out, people will gloss right through that. But when you understand that, no, what we're talking about is you must develop sati so that you know that you're doing that in breath and you know that you're doing that out breath. That's when we begin to understand, okay, this is how we practice sati. We
Mm,
practice it to get it on that in breath and to get it
yes.
on that out breath, which means that every in breath you're at least waking up to the breathing and then perhaps other things, and then on the out breath you're waking up again. That's what makes this practice so much different than other kinds of meditations that are thinking about staying on an object or concentrating or going deep or any of things like that. That what we're doing is, uh, even though this is a strange analogy, um, think about it like this. Um, in the Old West, you had gunslingers. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean by a
Yeah.
gunslinger?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, right. And the question is, unlike the duel of the 1820s to 1840s and 50s, the gunslingers of the 1880s out west, it was how fast could they get their gun out of the holster, draw it, take aim, and fire it. Right now, here's the question: is someone going to learn how to do that by holding the gun still and pointing it at the target and not firing? Or
No.
perhaps even target practice. You do have to have some target practice in order to be able to hit the target. But it's that drawing, the drawing, aiming, firing
Yes.
sequence.
Yes. Yes.
That's what
Absolutely.
makes the gunslinger stay alive. And so that's what
Yes.
makes him quick.
Yes.
That's what needs to be practiced, is pulling that gun out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's exactly the way that martial arts is also practiced. Okay. But they generally do it in the Asian style of practicing it slowly and then building up the speed. Well, guess what? You do that same thing with piano, especially
Yes.
with very difficult
I was thinking
passages.
about that. Yeah.
Okay. So, this is the whole idea then of what is sati, is the quick draw of the mind.
Yes. The quick draw of the
And that
mind.
we have
That's a
and we
good one.
ha- and so we have the ability to do that with every in breath and with every out breath.
Yeah.
That is the way of practicing every in breath and every out breath. We can say, okay, this is going to be a deep in breath and this is going to be a deep out breath.
Yes.
And so we keep bringing the mind back as if we were practicing drawing and firing the gun.
Yes.
Okay. But you can see then that the gunslinger has to develop more than one skill. He's got to not just draw the gun quickly, he's got to be able to aim it quickly, which means he's got to be able to see. So
Mm.
the drawing and the seeing and being able to grasp hold of the target. This is actually, even though it's a strange analogy because it often is thought of in violent terms, and the Buddha is not violent at all, except that many of the skills that you would think of that are necessary for the gunslinger are actually part of the practice of anapanasati. To be able to see the target, aim at it directly, and hit it in the sense of knocking it out of the mind,
Yeah.
blowing it away, getting
Yeah.
rid of that unwholesome thought, and then bringing in good wholesome thoughts in.
Yeah.
And you can imagine that after that gun duel of the quick draw, that the one who survived the quick is relieved. Great deal of relief. The pressure is off. I hit the target. I was able
Yes.
to survive. Wow, what a relief. So that's the sense also of step four of anapanasati is that relief that we feel when we've been able to remove the unwholesome.
Yes.
So getting back to that idea of waking up so that we can see things quickly, the more often we wake up, the more attention that we pay, the more synchronatic things that we'll see.
Mm.
So that's uh, the, the answer to your question about synchronicity, that it has to do with the mind, because
Yes.
all that stuff's happening already anyway. Here's a good example of it. Kind of cute also, but it's a real world example. Nobles are very hard to sneak up on, and yet ordinary people, a noble can walk right up behind them and startle them.
Mm.
Okay,
Okay.
very hard to walk up on a noble. So when a noble is able to sneak up on another noble, he knows he's been able to accomplish something,
I see.
because you know that guy's awake. So my daughter Kitty, it's so easy to. I'm in fact that's part of the way I'm trying to wake her up to be here in the present moment. Yes, you can watch your cell phone, but Daddy's in the room tickling your foot if you don't watch.
I see. I see.
And so it really does have a lot to do with be here now, to wake up. That this is stuff that I learned, actually, even though it's the Zen people, the Zen masters who were famous in the West for doing this. The Theravada have their ways also. Achan Po would little be able to. He stopped being able to sneak up on me. He woke me up by sneaking up on me, and that happened many times. And he would often just pass by. I'd be lollygagging or looking around or seeing what was going up, and I would hear him whisper in my ear, and he'd be here and gone. And he would say things like, "Not sure." That is, in fact, a reference to a sutta, but we'll go into that later. Another thing he
Okay.
would say would be tathatha. Can you imagine your teacher just walking up behind you and giving you one word, and by the time you
And
look around, he's
living.
gone?
Yeah.
I don't know how many people he did that to, but it was a wake up call. Okay. And part of it, the first impression I had was, is that okay? I've got to watch all the time to see if Achan Po is around. But that was a really good lesson to learn,
Yes.
because I'd already learned it from a friend in high school, a fellow motorbiker in a
Mm.
small town in South Carolina, and one of the things that he taught me was, you see the police before they see you. Because the police have got to do everything. All you have to do is spot the police. And so I
Yes.
use that with Achan Po. Okay, I'm going to spot Achan Po. But that was a good part of the training, is to be on alert and be on guard for where is Achan Po. Because if I don't know where he is, he's going to sneak up on.
And you would get startled?
Pardon?
Would you get startled?
No, no. I don't think that I ever got startled. I think as though is that it was, he would do another thing. The other thing that he would do is he would come in the daytime when I was in the kuti, and he would just stand. He would come close to the kuti and just stand. Now, the typical way for this to be done between monks is that instead of standing and calling or going onto the property and knocking on the door, rather that the monks will stand at a distance and clear their throat or cough. That
Mm.
that's the announcement.
Mm-hmm.
And it may have been that he did, and I didn't hear it because my hearing is not so good.
Mm.
But I started to become awake and aware that Achan Po may show up at any time, and I better be alert to it because I don't want him standing in the front yard mulling in his mind over how long it's taking me to figure out that he's out there.
Mm.
And so these are the kinds of things that Achan Po did that were playful, very playful,
Yes.
the way that he treated it, but it was a wake up call. Now, I have actually, let us put it this way, I have had students to become reluctant to call me again when I talk about this playfulness, to become
Why?
playful. Well, um, in that particular occasion, there were two gentlemen on the screen at the same time that were brothers.
Mm.
And I think that they misunderstood what I meant by being playful with each other.
Oh. I see.
And so we have to make sure that the audience is going to receive well what we have to say about this. But in
No, no.
anyway, you can see how Achan Po was being playful, and that I'm also doing that with Kitty, is to be able to come up. And anyone who's done a fair amount of walking meditation knows how to do it silently,
Mm.
and that you don't have to creep or sneak or go like this or any of the stuff that you see in cartoons. You can just walk silently
Yes. Yes.
and mindfully. And by doing so, people are not aware of it. But if you have someone who is practicing sati, then they're going to be enough alert that they're going to pick up on something. It can be the change of atmosphere. It can be the way the wind moves. It can be your breath stinks, or it doesn't matter what it is. They'll pick
Anything.
up on something and
Yeah.
know that you're there
I see.
because they're alive, they're awake, they're in their senses as well as in their head. People who get lost in thought then are very easy to sneak up on. This is the whole idea of the Zen stick. That's what it's for.
That
So
thing they
normally,
smash in the
right?
monks'
Who do
heads.
you think that the Zen master is going to hit? The guy who knows he's in the room, or the one who is deep in meditation?
The one deep in meditation.
The one who knows he's here. Exactly. I think that that's a part of the quality of the teaching of the Buddha that became, let us say, so integral into the martial arts of Japan at about the time that the shogunate was falling apart. So that you had all of these martial artists by the hundreds of thousands, millions of them that were mobilized, and now they've got nothing to do with their training and no place to go and nothing to do. And the Buddha comes by and shows them how to incorporate that. And that's what gives you things like Zen and the art of archery,
You
which
see.
is really all about breathing and mindfulness and moving the body. It is 100% anapanasati, including the part that after the bowman lets the arrow fly, he does something new. If it's in some sort of exhibition of rapid fire, he's going to be drawing more arrows. And if it's the exhibition to where he's just taking one shot, then he's walking off the stage before the arrow ever hits its target. The whole idea is that once the arrow is launched,
It's done.
it's done. Your job
Yeah.
is done. And yet you
Yeah.
see Westerners, they want to see, they don't care anything about the firing of the gun. They want to see what happened to the target,
Yes.
right? But with Zen and the art of archery, it's all about the drawing of the arrow, the drawing of the bow, the notching of the arrow, the bringing of the bow back, the holding of the arrow just long enough to take aim. And it's very, very similar then to the quick draw of the gunfighter that we were talking about. This is
Yes.
very, very similar.
Yes.
And part of the reason is that if you notch an arrow with your fingers like this and let go with the two fingers, it's very, very strong, these two fingers together. Except that when you let go of the bow, you can't control it very well. And
Mm,
so this is oftentimes when you're taking a long, long aim and holding it like that, you'll still miss because the fingers themselves become tired and don't release correctly.
I see.
So within the Zen system, they use the thumb and the forefinger, which means you can't hold it for very long. We're not going to hold it for very long. We're in the process of doing this quick.
I
So we're
see.
not going to hold the arrow and hold the bow so that we can take aim. Taking aim is not the issue. It's the rapid fire of the arrow. That's the
Yes.
issue.
I see. Just
And
enough
so,
time.
and the way the bow is built is really very interesting. And
Mm,
so basically what happens is that the bowstring is already here right at the face. And that the way that the bow then is drawn is that you move the left hand out and
and it
hold the
goes.
left hand and then let go like that. That's the way that the Zen does it. As opposed to in the West, they pull the bow back with the fingers and the string instead of leaving the string where it is with the fingers and then using and pushing the bow out.
I see.
So there's various techniques like this, and so always in competition, which is the better, because which is more accurate. The question is not that. In this regard, the question is how is the arrow fired? And
Mm,
so they do a very, very careful slow motion procedure of exactly every move. For instance, I've seen exhibitions where the bowman missed his arrow when he was getting it out of the sheath. And by missing it in that one action, he missed the next shot.
I see.
Every step of that sequence has to be done exactly correctly, just like, let us say, a masterful piano concerto. One note, you miss one note, and sorry, that's it. You got to
Yeah.
get every one of them in line and in order. So, because if you miss one note, it may take a while to recover from that because the pianist himself is going to remember he missed that note.
Yes.
Okay, and so it's hard to recover. So that's how it is with this. That's why it's that training or that sequence over and over and over again of repeating that. Let's get back down upon the sati. We're doing exactly that same procedure. Sati on the in breath, sati on the out breath. Long,
Yes.
deep in breath, long, deep out breath. This is the way that the anapana is practiced, and you can see that it has connections in reality of let's find a
Yes.
way of bringing the speed up
Yes.
so we can start watching what's going on and get a hold of how marvelous this place is because it's just absolutely locked up with
Yes.
synchronicity. I mean, it's just the planet operates on serendipity. That's the whole underlying motivation is this cause effect relationship that everything has.
Is
The interesting
Lila?
about it as a dance, a lila.
Yes. Yes. Exactly what I. Yes.
Everything is dancing.
Yes. There is only one sati.
Pardon?
There is only one sati.
I don't know how to answer that question. What do you mean?
Let me try to rephrase it. It's like
Every
because
breath is a new sati. Are you asking about the object of sati or the process of the waking
no,
up?
no, no, no. It's like because today it's kind of the actual question is like where is sati coming from? Like where is the place it's being shot from? because in the beginning of my practice I tend to feel like sati is something drawn out of the center of my experience, that it's somewhere behind my eyes, for example. But I'm not so sure that's the case.
Oh, okay. It depends upon which sense that you're in. And since the eyes and the ears are in the head, most people get a sense of self in the head. But also, if you dwell in emotions and feelings of fear, anger, anxiety, etc., like that, then people will get the feeling. And in more primitive cultures, this is exactly what happens: is that they get the sense of the feeling that the self is in the center of the
Yeah.
chest or the heart. Okay, but you can, in fact, some musicians do it, but I'll tell you who really does it a lot, and that is automobile mechanics.
Mm.
Automobile mechanics. That's one of the techniques that we learned is put your awareness into your hands. Well, guess what? This is a Buddhist practice also. This is something that is mentioned in the
Yes.
Satipatthana, is to take and put your awareness completely into your hands so that you become, this is your now, your sensory input. Okay. And that why do automobile mechanics is because oftentimes the mechanic cannot see either the hole or the screw he's about to put into that hole.
Mm-hmm.
But he can hold the screwdriver in such a way that actually, if you think about it in this way, the very weird part about it is that his sensory input is not in the hand, it's at the end of the screwdriver out here, because that's what we're dealing with.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, where is the focal point of our knowledge? But then the screwdriver, through its sensory touching, the synchronicity of the screwdriver, then the hand picks that up.
Mm.
And so it is with the hand, because the hand is the primary sensory input device, but it's actually is where our awareness is out there at the end of that screwdriver, at the place where the screw is, the one that we cannot see.
Mm.
And yet we're going to get it into that hole, get it turning, and screw it into place.
Yes.
Or the same thing with the wrench, or even getting the screw itself. That even though you do not put your awareness into the threads, you only have your hand, but the hand can sense where those threads are
Yeah.
so that you can back them up and turn it and get that screw to go into place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Where is your attention now? People will not say, oh, it's in the chest, or no, it's in the hand. I am this hand in
Yeah.
that regard. When we're putting things together, like putting screws or feeling our way through things. Another way is when you've lost something on the floor. Oftentimes we don't look for it with our eyes. What do? We get out on our hands and knees and we push our hands
Yes.
around. We're trying to
Start
find
tapping
it.
things. Yeah.
Right. So in that sense, our established awareness is in the hand.
I see.
So in a way, by putting our awareness into our hands, we're taking it out of the place which we normally keep it, in the sense of between the ears or behind the eyes or whatever like that. Is because of that illusion that because we're seeing that it's the eyes that see, therefore I am the eyes.
This sensation will vanish with time.
Pardon?
This sensation will vanish with time, like the sensation of being
Will
behind the
not
eye.
just vanish with time. I showed you in a way that it's going to vanish. All you have to do is pick up something in your hand right now and hold it and feel it, and it happens immediately. It's not something that will eventually over time. It's the fact that we spend so many mind moments in the head that we think that we're in the head.
Yes. It's because even when I touch something, it's like I keep going back and forth, back and forth. And but I cannot like feel I'm in here for an extended period of time, but I can very easily feel I'm here for a very
Mhm.
extended period of time.
Well, that's a means then of practicing the satipatthana, is to spend more time actually in the hands. There are
Mm.
mudras, positions of the hand for meditation, but also in the satipatthana it talks about whatever the hands are doing, reaching and grasping and touching and letting go and this kind of stuff. And one of the techniques of doing it is to do things slowly.
I see.
All
I
right.
see.
Here's an example of that. We'll use our little buddy here. Then instead of most people just grab it like that thoughtlessly. So what we're talking about is to start looking for it is that we move our hands, because if I'm moving slowly now, look how many mind moments of mindfulness I have to put into that thing to get a hold of it.
Mm.
The next really important point is, what is the first part of my hand that touches it? Is it going to be this finger right here? Is it going to be the thumb? What's going to be the first thing? You can see that the first and the second and the third thing. So as you're grasping something, what's the order of the touch?
I see.
Begin to notice those things. Start to, and we at first we slowed it down, but then later we get it up to speed so that even though we just grab it like we normally do it, we also know all of the individual fingers and all of that kind of stuff. So you get to the mind really fast with this teaching ourselves of touching and reaching and grasping and setting down objects that we hold in our hand. In fact, making the hands as part of the body is it's almost as if um, the breath body from here down to here is how we get started. But eventually, it's the hands that become the most important part of the body that we're really going to put awareness and attention into.
Mm.
What are we doing with our hands?
I see.
Okay, if you're going to touch your face, make sure that you touch it mindfully. Don't scratch mindlessly. In
Mm.
fact, don't scratch anything. Rub instead. And that takes mindfulness to do that, to make a change to it. That's in fact the important point, then, is always making these subtle little changes as training tools.
I see.
Moving the hand slowly, touching and noticing, withdrawing the hands. So, this sati that we're talking about, we get it built up so that we're mindful and awake and aware to many, many things that are happening around us.
I see.
This is the waking up process that's so strange because so many meditators think that it's going deep into meditation that's waking up. No, sorry, that's a different practice.
I
This
see.
is the anapanasati practice that the Buddha talks about, is to wake up, to be mindful, to start watching what's going on at the most exquisite detail,
Mm.
in the sense of speed, how things happen so fast.
I see.
There
Just
is so much
taking
happening right now. There is
Yeah.
just so much happening. But what we generally do is we see something, let us say with the eyes, we take that thing and then we process it. We try to name it, we try to understand it, we try to grasp a hold of it, we try to put it into context of the things that we saw. And while we're doing that, we're not looking at the next things that go by. The whole point is to keep coming back to the sensory input and stop paying so much time into the processing and understanding and knowing.
Of
That
clinging,
we have
right?
to let go of our knowledge, let go of our knowing, and do it more in the sense of just seeing. Just be here. Watch what's going on. Pay attention. Look closely. Watch closely now.
I see.
Keep noting, keep noticing, keep watching. That's the teachings of the Buddha.
So, when I'm doing like anapanasati, I go about with the breath, but in some like 30 minutes in, I feel like a very a very pleasant sensation of just like taking things in, like just like kind of receiving it, but like I don't know if it's equally as useful to like do that or to stay on the breath. I try to like kind
When
of
you're
mingle
on
the
the,
both.
okay, while we're doing Anapanasati, there are actually 16 steps of Anapanasati, four for each of the four foundations of mindfulness. And within each long breath and with each long out breath, we have actually plenty of time to do a number of the steps of Anapanasati, but we don't necessarily have to do them all within one breath cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That is much more like playing with toys.
I see.
Okay? So you have your favorite toys. One of the toys that should be the favorite is the sati, the
Yeah.
waking up, keep waking
Yeah.
up. And for a while, that'll be the favorite toy.
Yeah,
And
that one
then
is good.
later, it'll be, or at another time, it'll be gladdening the mind. That's my favorite toys. Let's get bright. Let's get sharp. Let's get up. Okay. And so there are various toys that will become the favorites from time to time, but many of them are needed within one mind moment, or excuse me, one breath. We can take a few mind moments to investigate, to make sure that this is a wholesome thought, that we're in the here now, that we're, you know, checking around, doing a kind of a quick inventory.
Like a body scan, you mean, when you touch the body?
Well, not just a body scan, but a feeling scan, a thought scan, a mental
Yeah,
condition
yeah.
scan.
I,
Hmm.
I try to notice like there is more and more moments when I'm not like finding any like particular or at least a strong enough emotion. So I because I was like I go with the breath, then I look at the emotions. I go at the breath, then I don't find any emotions, then I go at the thought process.
Okay, when you don't find any emotions, and in fact, this is actually part of the practice also, is that we notice not just what's there, but we also notice what was there and not now, or emptiness,
Mm,
sunyata. What's missing? What's not here?
yes,
Okay, and so
I'm
you're
finding
and
more things missing.
all right, and so in that regard, you can also congratulate yourself for the fact that hey, I feel okay now.
Mm,
I don't have any emotions or any feelings. I don't have any anxiety, no fears, no. We can go down through the checklist. No grief, no sorrow, no sadness, no lamentation, no impatience, no restlessness, no anger, no sorrow, no fear, all of that. You just, isn't that great?
yeah,
We don't feel any of that stuff.
yeah, yeah.
So that's actually taking that inventory that we're talking about here, is that investigation to check things out. How do you feel? Do you feel good now?
Mm,
Yeah, I feel good. Yeah, feels great.
I see.
Or if it's, oh, I feel anxiety, then we can say, wow, I've got a new toy to play with. I've got anxiety to play with. So let me play with it. Let me see if I can make it bigger and smaller. And can I move it from here to there? And can I control it with the breath so that it's bigger on the in breath and smaller on the out breath? Can I breathe it away? You know, these are the kinds of things that we can do with the
Of playful
anxiety. As I
things. Yeah, I see. I see. Uh, is it useful if I like try to after going to the emotions and thoughts to try to go to the thing that it's feeling the watching?
Say that again. I'm not quite understanding your question.
Is it useful also to investigate like the sense of a watcher inside the head, of a witness inside the head?
I would say no, in the sense of from the time I'm thinking of the Sabha Sutta now, as well as it's also in other suttas, in number 38 also. But it's very clear in the Sabha Sutta that thoughts of who am I and what am I on and where did I come from and where am I going and who is this and what is this observer, those kind of questions will lead to anxiety.
Mm.
They will lead to frustration. They will lead to not knowing when we ask those kind of questions and pay attention to that. That in fact, a much better thing to pay attention to is this dukkha or is this not? When we were talking
Okay.
about anxiety, then I was thinking of that in the sense of yes, we can label that as dukkha and therefore is worthy of our attention in the sense of noticing the source of it, what caused that anxiety, because it can be a recurring thought.
Mm.
That thought can be congealed down from a whole episode down to just say one word or one little tiny thought like the word lawyer.
Mm.
That one word or even just a gray spot that represents the lawyer, and here comes that anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we can begin to chase that down. Oh, and now I know why I have that anxiety. It's because there was only just one thought moment, and all of that sudden that anxiety spigot got turned on.
I see. Like
And
compressing
so
it,
all I
right?
have to do is yeah, have compassion for yourself, have compassion for the breath, and say, never mind, I don't need to deal with that lawyer right now. I can tell. Oh, it feels so good to relax. I don't have to think about that lawyer. Okay, that's the way. Just say everything is okay now. I'll deal with that lawyer if I ever get an email from him or something. I'm not going to deal with him now or until some event is triggered. Something real happens. Right now, anything that my thoughts about that lawyer are not real, but look at all the anxiety I can give myself by thinking about that lawyer.
I see.
Okay. And it
I
doesn't
see.
even matter about who the lawyer is or what his business is or even that it's a lawyer. I'm just using that word lawyer as an example because most people will freak out when we start talking about the need of a lawyer.
Yeah.
Them's heavy times.
Yeah.
Okay, so um, that's a source of anxiety. These thoughts that can happen immediately. But if we can be aware of those, then we can see both that thought and the anxiety arise within the next mind moment or two, and say, "Hot dog, I saw that one."
I see. You wanna know? I think I'm thinking right now. Like, remember the guy you talked with about like uh enjoying like dishwashing,
Uh huh.
and now you're talking about lawyer.
Uh
Because
huh.
I went exactly to law school, and I was thinking it's funny you brought that up, like at the same
Ah,
moment.
there's synchronicity again.
Yeah,
There it is.
yeah. I remember another one. Like 3 days ago, I think I had a dream about you and Daniel Ingram together on a call, and I today I discovered you're going to do a podcast together.
We did that podcast 2 days ago
Oh,
on
okay.
Tuesday.
It's because it's much funnier than I just discovered like today, and it's going to be broadcasted. I think in a couple of days or something.
Yeah, it's going to be. Yeah, I'm sure that we all enjoyed it. It was a very fun call. Nobody got upset. Nobody fell on the floor.
Yes, I imagine.
Well, I'm not sure about that falling on the floor. Something fell on the floor, but you can see the video. I'm hoping that that was cut out of it.
I see.
in in any case, yes. Um, is marvelous at how in sync everything is. Everything is in sync, but it always follows the natural laws of nature, which the physicists have defined into the four forces, and everything operates within those four forces. And we can say that those four forces always operate. They are always there. Not only there, but they know exactly when and where and how to operate. Those laws just are there. And they're always so strong that nothing can resist those laws.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. The laws of nature then are omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent, just like they say God is. And so there is a God in nature, right? And he can be your best buddy if you want to have a he in it, or it can be your best buddy or your best friend, or it can be your enemy, depending upon your attitude.
Yeah.
Right? And you can look at it in at just one of these things. For instance, one of the four forces is electromagnetic force, and another one is gravity. And look at gravity. Gravity is smart. If you trip, it'll be there to catch you and fall and make you fall down. It'll trip you up, right? Any bird that stops flying is going to fall out of the air.
Yeah.
Gravity is right there all the time, and it's smart enough to know how to trip you up. So you better be careful. You better watch where you're going because gravity is going to bust your ass if you're not mindful.
Yeah.
And so this is how a lot of people get magical thinking into this synchronicity, is because they think that there is something magical about the forces of nature. No, the forces of nature are very smart,
Yes.
but they're not smart the way that you think they are. It's different. Very, very different than the way that we think of it. It's not human. It's kind of better than human because humans
Yes.
are not always right. But the force of gravity and the force of
They
electromagnetic
are always
energy,
right. Yeah.
always right.
Always on point. Yeah. Exactly.
And so this is why sati is to start waking up to see cause and effect and the cause and effect because that cause and effect is also part of the law of nature. That in fact gravity gets its power from causality.
Mm-hmm.
Something is underlying that gravity that causes those gravitational waves the way that they are, based upon the size of bodies and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
That that I mean, cause and effect is at the root of everything,
Mm-hmm.
and so is really then a useful thing for us to start waking up to very quickly, seeing these instantaneous, it seems, cause and effects.
Yes.
Because when people are very slow, they get confused. Let us say, for instance, they notice the effect first and then they notice the cause, but because of the way that they saw them in that order, they think that the effect was the
They
cause and the
reverse it.
cause
Yeah.
was the
Yeah. Yeah.
effect.
Yeah.
They get things backwards.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
Or they think that they're unrelated. They don't understand that there was causality in there.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
seeing things clearly means that we have to have a mind that's sharp enough and fast enough to see some of the stuff that appears to be unrelated or backwards in the causality and begin to see things straight.
Mm-hmm.
This is why Buddhism, the teaching of the Buddha, is scientific. It's all science, there's no magic to it.
Yes.
And it's our magical thinking that often gets us into trouble.
Yes. Can I ask you a question? Like,
I thought that's what
I,
you would.
I know I've been doing it for quite some time, but it's like I want to know if you perceive like some kind of I know this answer is obvious, like because there are many, but I want to know if there is any specific like blind spot you're seeing in me or my practice that you like to address that is important for me to work on and I am missing.
No, I'll let you find those. I'll let you find those. Because you will. You'll trip and fall and you'll recognize, hey, I just stumbled over something I was blind to.
Okay.
And some of your friends may help you do that. But all I can do is say, wakey, wakey.
Okay.
Look at what you're doing. And you will begin to no longer have so many blind spots.
I see.
And so it really depends upon your skill. If I tell you what's wrong with you, one of two things will happen. One is you won't believe me, you'll get into an argument with me, and then you'll stop calling. The other possibility is you'll say, hey, you know, you're right. That's the only thing that I've got left. Goodbye. I don't need you anymore. So it's better for me to keep my mouth shut and stop diagnosing you until you see it yourself. And then I'll congratulate you for having seen something that I already saw.
I see.
But that's because I've been trained as a psychologist.
Oh,
And
okay.
so,
Okay.
well, I think that this is time to draw this one to a close.
Yeah.
I'll let you go find those blind spots.
Okay.
And the way to find them is before you stumble over them.
All right.
See them coming before you walk into it. That's the
Okay.
way to see it. See
See the
it coming.
police.
Yeah, be a quick draw.
Yeah. All right.
All righty, we'll
Thank
see
you
you.
very much. Bye bye.